this panel have said. They're looking forward to, trying to look forward to see, and that's supposed to be the subject of this thing. But I find a couple of things, Dr. McGovern, to be interesting. For one thing, my granddaughter was just accepted into Yale, so you'll see Maggie Inhofe walking around the halls in some place.
That's a suggestion to be particularly generous in your
Yeah. Yeah.
Understood.
And she needs financial assistance. Dr. McGovern, I appreciate some of the things that you have said, and I agree with almost everything. I take issue with a couple of things. First of all, perhaps, I think you were approximating maybe in the range of 10,000 deaths. And I would only ask that, not that you respond now, but you look at some of these things that we have. We actually have the videos of going in there, and these are the UN helicopters, gunships, going in, destroying huge parts of this city. And I've spent so much time in the very parts that I've seen destroyed. I can't see that's even possible that it isn't at least 10 times that number. Just keep that, I would like to have you just keep that open. Secondly, I appreciated you talking about that reconciliation will not be achieved by a commission, and I agree with that. Thirdly, I would like to ask what you think about the comments that were made by President Museveni, President Mbeki, Obiang, Odinga, and you just have to take my word for it. There are many, many more that I've talked to personally. Just we don't have their names or their permission to use it. That this perhaps was bungled the way it was handled, and that there are so many out there that perceive this as a neo-colonialism effort by the French. I'd like to have your thoughts on that, and then I have one last question to ask.
Yes. I think that one thing it's very important to remember is that the ball started rolling with ECOWAS, it was passed to the AU, and then it went from there outside of Africa. So I personally find that it was strategically a very unfortunate decision to have French helicopters join in the attacks. I'm sure you've read the UN Security Council resolution. It was worded in an ambiguous way, which may well have given scope for the French to be involved. Other people think not. In any case, the UN mission did have Chapter 7 ability and was specifically empowered by that resolution to take aggressive action against the Gbagbo government. Whether you agree with that or not, I think that's clear. As far as whether or not it's a neo-colonial intervention, I think it's important to remember that the reason Laurent Gbagbo, in my view, the reason he has been treated differently from, say, Robert Mugabe, has a lot to do with the fact that he burned his bridges not only with Europeans and with the UN, but also with his peers in West Africa. Having people from his FPI party threaten the lives of other West Africans who were resident in Côte d'Ivoire, not once but several times, was something that made Nigerians, Burkinabe, Malians, others very angry. And it ended up over time, this is over 5 or 7 years, it ended up building a coalition of African leaders who actually outnumber the ones that you've listed, and I think that's simply a fact. Thank you.
The other thing you had mentioned, and I thought it was significant, because the first panel, in my opinion, by making several comments referring to the previous 10 years, were trying to say this was President Gbagbo. You were good enough to be honest about it and say that this goes it could be maybe 2 or 3 decades back. That would include the time when Ouattara was the prime minister, which was 1990 is when that began. So I think we want to make sure that we don't all say that this is all this administration. I think that's very significant. I would like to ask as a favor that anyone, particularly my colleagues up here, read the article, What the World Got Wrong in Côte d'Ivoire. This was an article that was written in the, what was this? Which magazine? Foreign Policy magazine. That's a well-respected magazine. I pretty much agree with everything that's in here. Lastly, I would just say this. Sure, I've given up on what I originally intended to do. I thought we had such incontrovertible evidence. There isn't anyone on this panel or anyone in this room who will say that if President Laurent Gbagbo, the first election, got thousands and thousands of votes in those northern regions, which they call them, not precincts, and then turned around in the runoff and got 0, that can't happen. We all know that. And all you have to do is do your math. You can see this election was up in the air. Well, there should have been a re-election, another election. I did everything I could to make that happen. It's not going to happen now. I understand that. So as we look at the things that that are open, I would only suggest that the option of an effort to put the President and the First Lady and a lot of the others into an exile situation, maybe I'm not using the right word, but to me, when I look at it and I look at the repercussions, I look at the number of people who I know and who live in Abidjan, in the southern part of Côte d'Ivoire, and I see the number of people who are watching and observing as we're sitting here today, the death squads going around and killing people in the streets today, right now, that this is something that's going on, and it's something that is going to be, you're going to have to think of some way, reconciliation. To me, the best way would be to accept the invitation, and I would hope that there are those who are listening with the State Department. I doubt it, but I hope that they are. The last thing I would do is respond to something that Mr. Fitzgerald had referred to. You know, if I showed all the pictures that I had, you've already seen those, if you still come to the conclusion that there's any level of fairness, that it wasn't just sheer brutality, I don't know where you could come from. But the statement that President Gbagbo is being treated fair, I'm going to ask for. Let's look at, first of all, the picture of the Laurent Gbagbo that I know, the one that I've known for many years. I've known even before he was president. There he is, a happy face, jovial man. A lot of people loved him. Let's look at his picture today. As you can see, the side of his face is kicked in. That's the Gbagbo of today. Then let's go to Simone. I've got to know her very well over the years, back when she was a member of parliament and not even married to Laurent Gbagbo before that time. This is the beautiful lady. I don't think anyone's going to question how beautiful this lady is. Let's look at Simone today. When they ravaged her, they pulled her hair out by the roots, danced in the streets. This is all Ouattara's people. We know that. Nobody denies that. And then the one that is most revealing as to what's happening today. There she is, folks. There's Ouattara's people. Use your imagination. Just, you know what happened. You know what's happening now. And all I can say is this is a travesty, is something that in the 15 years that I have been in Africa, I've made 116 African country visits. I have a heart for Africa. This is the worst that I've seen. I'm going to make every effort to try to encourage people to examine very carefully the option of exile. I think that's the reasonable thing to do, and I think it's the best thing in terms of going forward, in terms of how people are going to be, to keep from being a martyr. And I think that perhaps is the best of a lot of not too pleasant options that are out there. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Isaacson, we passed over you during the